We are we are live.
All
Welcome
right.
to All Politics So Local Extra. This is a wonderful. I look forward to this interview. We have on Fredrica Bey, legendary activist, and
Mm,
she's here with us for the half an hour. So welcome to All Politics So Local Extra.
thank you so much. It's good to be back.
Well, it's good to have you here. I was so excited to have you. I was looking about some of the things in your biography, and it really does read like it could be an Oscar-winning movie, right? Like you have
Oh,
people who organize, right? Like organized from having little, right? Organized from little
yeah,
came to have a lot of different stuff, right? Like came to help organize the Wisdom Mansion, a
that's right.
community center, and
That's
then
right.
had to fight the feds, right? You got that
Oh,
you've
yeah.
got that exciting part, right? Where and you live to tell about it.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah.
people can learn a lot of lessons from the struggles that you had and from the good things that you did because you are very well respected throughout this city, throughout this country. Actually, you
Thank you so
are
much.
still moderating things with Ron Daniels and with
Oh, yeah.
the mayor,
Oh,
and you are respected for the work that you've done
thank you.
throughout Newark, throughout New Jersey, and so thank you for coming here.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. And give my baby girl, Annette, my love, please.
And that's my sister, and I
I
definitely will.
appreciate
My sister is actually one of the ways that I know you. She organized. My sister was is does organizing,
Yes,
and
she
one of
does it
the
well.
and thank you. And one of the organizations she was with was housed inside of Wisdom Mansion.
Absolutely, absolutely, and she was a delight to to have with us, and especially in the beginning. She was a good resource. Did we lose you?
No, no, he goes
Oh,
from one picture to the next. So
oh, I see.
often they focus on you. So a little shout
Okay,
out to Tematope.
okay,
Tematope is a former debater of mine who graduated, and she works with us on the show. She's going to be a student at Rutgers and debate for Rutgers. The Rutgers debate team is also helping us do this. Uh,
okay,
but
great.
right now, we see a lot of things going on in the news. We see there are massive amounts of protests. There are protests on police brutality. There are protests that deal and organizing around the election that's coming up. There's all the
Mhm.
stuff around COVID and also things that are really important about gentrification and housing laws. How do you look at the amount of protest in this moment that we're in right now? Like, how do you view this current moment that we're in?
Jonathan, I can't be more proud of our young people today. Black Lives Matter, how they insisted on making the statement universal. And it is universal today. And it's not just a statement, they're putting policy in to give teeth to Black Lives Matter, to give, to breathe life into it. So I can't be more proud of our Black young people today. And I was very surprised because, I mean, they're really carrying on the banner and they're carrying on well. We had our struggles and our victories in the 60s, and they're having their struggles and their victories now, but they're having more victories now than struggles, and that's a wonderful thing because they are bent on the fact that we're not going to continue to let the police just kill us and lynch us in cold blood in broad daylight in front of the world and not have consequences.
You've done a lot in the past that gave you your political perspective right now. What is there about how you grew up that
Mm,
got you involved in the way that you did? From the
mhm,
woman in support of the Million Man March to the even buying the property, starting the charter school. I mean, you did a lot that
mm,
dealt with trying to build institutions.
mhm.
How did you grow up, and how did that affect the beginning of your activism?
Well, my mother, a Black woman from Georgia, Adele Howard Chow, she migrated from Georgia in the 40s, and her first husband was killed in Georgia. Um, she came here to Newark and she married my stepfather, and he's the only father I've ever known, Young Chow. He migrated from Canton, China. And I was the fifth child of my mother's. It was five of us when she worked for him in his Chinese laundry. and he married her, and he gave her 5 more children.
Okay.
I had 5, I still do. Now I have 3 um, sisters. We were all raised as sisters. It wasn't any half sister or anything like that. But certainly they're half Chinese and half Black. And of course, I was 5 years old, Jonathan, and I'll never forget. At 5 years old, I found out what it meant to be Black in America, and I cried the whole day. I came inside, and I don't remember the incident, but I remember clearly that day I found out what it meant at 5 years old, what it meant to be Black, and going into that black doll, white doll syndrome, you know. So
What
Osman Sharif,
do you remember what happened or anything around that, like, or
I
even
don't,
your
you know,
reaction?
I don't remember. We were in the backyard, and we were in the backyard playing, and I don't know what somebody said to me or did or whatever. And it culminated in other things that were happening when I was 5 years old that made me know how hard it is to be Black in America at 5. And I wanted to be white.
Mm.
I did. I wanted to be white. I wanted to have long hair like my sisters. We didn't do the Black so and so, yellow so and so thing. That wasn't allowed, and it wasn't even thought about in our family, really. We have a very close knit family because my mother and father were serious, beautiful people. Okay, both of them. And he had oppression in China. She had oppression in Georgia. They came together, and I'll never forget either. In his laundry, my mother worked for him, so of course they got married, and they announced, he came in and told the other workers, the women, that he had married my mother, Adele. And Miss Kaiser, I'll never forget it, she took her apron off and she left, and she said, I will not work for a nigger, and I
Wow.
will not work for anybody Blacker than me. And she was like an Adam Clayton Powell, you know, a Beyonce skin color. So, you know, Osman Sharif, we just dedicated a street for him again in Newark, and I was asked to be the MC. And he taught me how to get to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He
Mm.
brought me to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and to the Nation of Islam when I was a very young woman. I was a young woman at the time. And that changed my life. It changed my thinking about who I am. It gave me the knowledge of myself and the love of myself, and certainly the love of my people. And
Could you describe like what that initial meeting was or what those initial experiences were like? How, in what way did joining the nation transform you?
well, I was doing the things I saw my sisters and brothers do, you know, uh, you know, getting high with reefer and whatever and going to bars. And I was 16 years old. And, you know, I was doing what I saw the folks that were older than me do, and they were all killed. You know, I saw my older sister, I saw my cousins die from lung cancer, from smoking, or from drinking, or from drugging. And, you know, thank God I was so young at the time when I, you know, came into the nation and changed my eating and my thinking, mainly my thinking about who I am and what I put into my body temple. And that changed my life. And Malcolm really, I mean, when I first heard him, I actually walked out because we went to church right down the street, right? And the brothers used to come and they talk to us before we go to the evening BYPU. And none of the sisters would talk to them, but I would argue with the brothers. So they said, Malcolm's coming. I went up to hear Malcolm.
And you went up where? You were in Harlem or was he in Newark?
No, he was in Newark. He was in Mosque number 25, and it was right on 15th Avenue up the street from our church. And I went and I walked out, and I never forget, Malcolm said, you'll be back, sister, as I was walking out. And he couldn't have been more right. He couldn't have been more right. So I thank Allah so much for Osman, you know, stopping me that day and taking me to 257 South Orange Avenue and me accepting Islam and cleaning up my thoughts and my body and my mind and my spirit, and having the spirit to share it with my family and community, and to build for ourselves, and not depend on anything or anybody else for things that we can do for ourselves. And I experienced a nation within a nation. Our children were insulated, everything they needed. The educational system was there. The whiting H&G, that import export was there. The bakery, the restaurant, the supermarket, it was just a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I love Minister Farrakhan to this day for calling the Million Man March.
Now, the Million Man March was seemed to be incredibly important in your life. When you first heard about it, what happened? Because a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's the Million Man March. It's it's only about men." But a major women's organization in the state developed based on your interaction with that. So, what was that like? What when you were looking at when you first heard about the march? What was going on, and why did it lead to what it led to?
I don't know, Jonathan. Something within, as the song says, something within. It just said, "This is going to be huge. This is going to be." And it was more than I ever could have expected. And I was there because we had a contingency of buses leaving from everywhere across the state, but we had nurses. And so brother said, Sister Fredrica is our spiritual nurse. She should go, right? Because we had fixed food all night. We've been up all night fixing food for the buses. Long story short, we got into Washington, D.C., and Maisha Amen, we laid down and went to sleep because we hadn't slept all night. We got there about 10 o'clock. We woke up in heaven. All these Black men, the peace and the serenity and the respect, and from every genre, you saw your doctors there, Black doctors there, and engineers. You saw the Bloods and the Crips, you saw everybody there. And, like you've heard, brother, oh, excuse me, I stepped on your foot. No, brother, my foot was in your way. I've never seen Black men so respectful and so loving and so peaceful that day. And when we left, the whole lawn was clean. The Washington, D.C. monument where we were, it was not a piece of, not anything. It was just a piece of heaven. And so when we came back, we were on fire and ready to sit down and do what we did at the dining room table. And at the dining room table, we started a 10-year plan. And we put $1,000 each on the table. We trusted each other with the money. I love working with these sisters. And I love working with the strong brothers we had, because our whole thrust was to support the brothers. And they had a pledge, as you know. And then the minister gave a blueprint. And so we said we would take one thing, and that one thing was education, and we were determined to do it in our own property.
So give me more background on that, because a lot of activists right now they're organizing, they're trying to do different things. And I think that everyone can learn from just other people who've tried to do it before. And you said that there was a 10-year plan, like, because you actually started organizing a year before the Million Man March.
That's right.
And I think that you said like 50,000 people from New Jersey, like that you organized buses for 50,000 people to go down from New Jersey.
That's what was reported in the Wall Street Journal.
Wow. And so I'm just saying that, like, that's just huge. And when you got back, you're saying that there were certain principles and a 10-year plan. What were those principles, and what was that plan?
Well, the principles were, basic principles of atonement, and what atonement is. Atonement is to God first, and then it's to your wife and your family. It is to never call a Black woman out of her name. or any woman out of her name. It is to build, to go back and take what you learned at this march and build on it, and take at least one of the tenets, whether it's import, export, it's business, it's education, it's entrepreneurship, whatever it is, and take it and build on it in your community. And we took education, and we were determined on buying property and not being subject to, other people. And that's what we did. And the trust that the sisters had for me and I had for them, we had for each other. I stayed in my lane. I'm a realtor. So what I did, because there are a lot of sisters that have a lot of degrees, like my daughter and Vesta and a lot of them around the table, and I'm not that. I do have, real estate sense, and I have a love of it. And that's what I did. So I found that first property, and it's the mansion at Lincoln Park, 53 Lincoln Park. We purchased that in 1990, early January 1997. And then we purchased the second property across the street with the equity from that. It was another mansion at 67-69 Lincoln Park. And then with the equity from both buildings, we were able to purchase that huge, it was $4.5 million at that time, where Audible is now, and was owned by Amazon. And that's 15 James Street, right at Washington Street.
So let me get this right, like, because like you're making it sound like it's easy, but you purchased millions of dollars worth of property.
Yes, we did.
Like, you didn't have, like, were you rich? Like didn't you have
right.
money? I'm asking, right? Because you're like, you had 4.5 million. Like, we're at the time, like, the question is, what did you do to organize to be able to raise that money? We talked about trust. You talked about, like, how were these principles working so that you were able to actually raise money to be able to purchase the first property, understand equity to purchase the second one? Like, how did that work?
Well, it is simple, but the thing is the trust. People have to trust each other, and that's something that Willie Lynch made sure we didn't do. We only trust white people, and we don't trust each other. And love, we only love white people, and we don't love ourselves and each other. But so we put money on the table, as I said, $1,000 each on the table to start raising money. We didn't want to ask folks for money, and we didn't have any skin in the game. We didn't have any buy-in. We have X amount of dollars, and we're trying to raise X amount of dollars. We had a big billboard that was up in the dining room in my house of the mansion, so we could look at it and see it, and it is so beautiful. Oh my God! And then we had fundraisers, like we collected pennies in the park, and people would come in and give $25 checks or $1,000 check or 500 or 200, checks like that. And we'd have fundraisers to, make money to buy that first building. And then when we got and the last $5,000 came from one of our members' mother, may Allah be pleased with her forever, Miss Douglas. She just wrote a check for me for $5,000. It was the last that we needed. We went in and ready to close, and we couldn't close because our organization didn't have any real track record. You know what I'm saying? So we did close with my daughter signing. She was at home, still in college. Her and Vesta was young and at home, and they signed. They had good credit, and they signed. And then the year after, we had built up a credit worthiness, and then we bought them out, although they took the taxes off. So they got, you yin and yang, they deserve to do that because they put their name down on the building. And so then it became ours. So when it became ours, and we had the equity to buy the second property, because as you know, these properties are worth a lot of money today. And
right.
Yeah. And so, then we purchased the mansion for $175,000.
Wow.
Yeah, $175,000. And Clement Price, he lived right next door. May Allah be pleased with him and Mary Sue. They live right next door. Mary Sue, you know, he passed some years ago, but Mary Sue just sold that house for almost $5 million. It's $4.7 million she sold it for, and their house is much smaller than the mansion, you
Hmm.
know. And so again, we took the equity out of 53 and we bought 67. So we started our preschool. Mayor Sharp James, may Allah be pleased with that man forever. And they locked him up for absolutely nothing. And the judge said it. They locked him up for helping us buy $1 million property. And he would have done that for anybody who's teaching children in his city. You know, that's what mayors are supposed to do. But he really helped us get into 15 James Street, because of course we needed about $500,000 to put down on that $4.5 million property. So it was about $450,000 that we put down on that. And you know, the rest, I mean, that building, we opened it up, we asked Allah, God, and the beauty though, Jonathan, is that Christian sisters, Muslim sisters, Jerry was the Buddhist. Charlotte is the Catholic. We would say prayer, and whoever said the prayer, it was accepted. Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, at the beginning, at the end of our meeting, and we would read Willie Lynch before we did anything, you
Hmm.
know, and then we would do I would cook every Wednesday because I was a realtor. So my time wasn't a 9 to 5. So I would cook dinner because everybody was either coming from school or from work. And it was fun, you know,
So,
organizing. And
so
especially,
when you organized, you were doing it once a week, like you met every
that's
week,
right,
once a week.
every Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
Hmm. And so every project that you were working with, any organizing, that would take once a week on Wednesdays.
That's exactly right. And every Wednesday, I would have the bank account on the table, and I would duplicate it so everybody would have it. They would see what they put in, they would see what expenses were. I mean, you know, transparency. You know, and that's how we had such a cohesive organization. You know, we trusted each other because we were trustworthy. You know, and everything that was spent was on the table every Tuesday, as well as a deliciously cooked with love dinner. That
Okay.
always helps.
And
That
and
always.
so and so this is an organization. Again, this is an organization of all women, women in support of the Million Man March, all coming together, buying property, starting a
Right.
school, right, and doing like. What are some of the other programs that you did? I know that the focus was on education. Was it just in starting the school, or were there other programs as well?
Yeah, we started a boycott crime campaign, and that's what started the FBI and the Department of Justice investigating us. And the boycott crime campaign was a simple thrust, and that was to stop that, you know, pipeline to prison, and you know, to talk to what we did initially starting the boycott crime campaign. We got the gangs, the Bloods and the Crips, into 53 Lincoln Park. We cook dinner. We always do things around food because that makes people stay and think. Anyway, that afternoon, Jonathan, we got the doorbell rang, and Yvonne, Aisha, she came back to my office and she said, Fredrica, the FBI is at the door. I
Wow.
said, the FBI is at the door. Yeah. So I said, tell them to come in. So little short white blonde haired woman, young, she came in and she introduced herself and she gave me her card. And she said she understood that we were having dinner with the gang members that night, and she wanted to come. And
Wow.
I said, you can't come, because if you come, they will not come. Or if they come and see you, they will not stay. And the
Right.
purpose is to bring them together and have our young men. Larry Ham was there, Mayor Baraka was there. Of course, he wasn't mayor at that time, but you know, all of the young progressive black men were there to talk to the Bloods and the Crips about reasons why they were not enemies, that they are brothers, and they should stop the killing. That was the purpose of that night.
What year was
I
this?
Jonathan, I didn't know that they had made flyers. This is how this woman got it. They
Mm.
had made flyers that were going around that the Bloods and the Crips were going to meet at the mansion. And my niece, who was on the police force at the time, she just retired. She called me. She said, Frida, I just walked past the computer and I saw the mansion up there. And I stopped and I went back. And they said, you having a meeting there tonight with the Bloods and the Crips? I said, yeah. I said, she said, well, it's the police. I said, well, I called the police chief to let him know. Okay. And I told the FBI agent, I told her, and she hates us until this day. I told her that day that I had called the police department and talked to the police chief. I called the sheriff's department and told them. I told them we don't want any sheriff cars or police cars anywhere near Lincoln Park, but we are having this meeting with our children. We are fixing dinner and we're having, Larry Ham, Raz Baraka, and the brothers come in to talk peace and to talk entrepreneurship and to talk a better way of life and to be brothers and to do for yourself. And that was the beginning of our investigation.
So that's when the FBI first targeted you, because like there was,
Yes.
and and just to be clear, this is Women Support of the Million Man March, the organization. You're in the properties that you purchased, and you're using it to bring Crips and Bloods together. What year was this?
That was 1990. That had to be somewhere around, maybe around 2000. Because I think we had the other property then, and we definitely had our school. 1999 or 2000, because in 1999 we had Winnie Mandela there, and that was huge. She was there for Kwanzaa in December. I think that was around that time. Yeah.
So how did the FBI come at you? What was that like? And how did you survive it?
Oh, wow. Wow. I'm still, you remember The Color Purple when Oprah Winfrey, the character that she played, she punched the mayor's wife out and they locked her up and beat her up and
Right.
when she sat at Christmas table. That's what kind of happened to your other mother. I mean, it took a lot out of me because we knew what we were doing was from God and from our hearts, and it was working in the community. But Minister Farrakhan came to Newark. He visited the mansion. He came and he dedicated the cultural center on James Street. And he sat in the mansion and he told us, now that you bought that property downtown, you're messing in white folks' business.
Mhm.
And they're gonna come after you. You're a black spot in the middle of white development. And when they come after you, they're coming after you with a vengeance.
Mm.
And when they do, your only solace will be to wrap yourself in God. You and God, you and God, you and God. And I started to cry. And he wouldn't sit at the head of the table like we tried to get him. He said, no, that's your seat, Sister Fredrica. He sat on the side of me and he grabbed my hand. He said, oh, I didn't mean for you to cry. I was uncontrollably out of nowhere. I think it wasn't out of nowhere, Jonathan. It was that I knew what he was saying was true. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew what he was saying, and that I would feel the brunt of it because I'm the face of the organization. And so I had to really brace myself for that. But what he gave us was invaluable because he was right. You have to wrap yourself in God because nobody but God can deal with this demon that we're dealing with in the hellholes of North America.
What did they actually do in terms of their investigation? Were there raids? Were there, because I know that the FBI came at you, like they
Oh my
came for
God.
you, right? So what did they do to come for you, and what advice would you give?
Okay. I think, Jonathan, the most disturbing thing for me was my grandchildren were in high school, junior high school and high school. They're twin boys at the time. And, I mean, they understood what grandma did. They understood grandma always has been, an activist and out there and just, organizing with the people and doing things, God's work, really. But what they did, they started that series of of articles in the Star Liar, and they had my face on the front pages, and then they went in 2 and 3 and 4 or 5 pages deep with lies, you know. I mean, they went back to when I was 12, you know, with lies. And some of them wasn't lies when I was real young, you know. But no, some of it was the truth. But, you know, the boycott crime campaign was the catalyst. And that was our mistake. We didn't borrow. We did a grant for $300,000 for the boycott crime campaign. And God bless Lautenberg, Senator Frank Lautenberg, God bless him forever, and John Corzine. He was a senator at the time before he was the governor. We went to everybody, like we went to Sharp as mayor, and asked them, we need money for this boycott crime campaign. They wrote us a $300,000 check. My mistake was I never had a government grant, and I should have gotten someone that knew how to do it. And long story short, I didn't know how to do the math, but they came in, and that beautiful conference room that seats about 50 people easily, you know, beautiful conference room at 15 James Street, where now Audible is. And they came in every day for at least a year and a half or more. And when I say every day, I mean every day. Everything, every bank account we had, everything. And our blessing, and the reason I'm talking to you right now, and you didn't have to call me up in jail, is because there is not one dime that they found that we stole. Not one nickel. And we had a beautiful group of sisters from Philly come in and do a forensic audit. And when that forensic audit was done, it showed that the government owed us $100 and some odd thousand. But again, I got people from within that didn't know any more than I did about how to audit, how to document this government grant, right? And so when we had events and we paid vendors and, you know, to come in and teach our children different skills, or, you know, the rites of passage and different things that we're doing to enhance our young people, we didn't put a rent charge on there. And we had a huge rent with the, you know, property that we owned, right? But we paid it out of that. So we, you know, paid money out of that, but we didn't put it down in sequence like we should have. We didn't, you know what I'm saying? We didn't know, I didn't know how to do it. And I didn't get anyone who did. The people that were in there in the organization, they did it. They didn't know any more than I did. Okay. As I said, I stay in my lane, and that's real estate, and it's organizing. So that's the mistake that I made, that if you borrow that money, I would never. They sent me a letter, I could show it to you, and thanked us for the investigation, said the investigation was closed. They thanked us for our cooperation. And if we ever need any more money, to call 1-800, yeah, right.
Wow. Are you like,
yeah,
so after they dragged your name and aided in dragging your name and your organization for years, articles that are still there that people can Google. After they did all that, they sent you a letter, like, and after they took your properties, right? Like they did that and took your properties, they're like, well, you know, our bad.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
Because if they could have found a dollar, a nickel that we stole, they couldn't find it. And they went to my mother's house. They went to my neighbor's house. Everybody that they thought we knew, they went to, you know. And it was grueling. And then all of that in the paper, and my grandson seeing it, you know. It was really hard, because I mean, I love my family like I can't even, like breath, and my grandchildren, oh my God. But that's the price. And the minister had told us, and of course that's where those tears came from with him that day, because I didn't know how it was going to come down, but I knew I was going to get the brunt of it, you know. So I would just say I wouldn't deal with the government at all. I just wouldn't do it again. If I had to do it all over again, I find another way, because we could have just, you know, pulled our resources and did what we had to do. But Jonathan, you know what really, really hurts is when brothers will come up today. They've been coming up for the last year since we were closed down. And we did have 20 good years of beautiful service to the community that I'm very humbled and proud to have been able to be a part of. But and say, if Sister Fredrica, if we would have helped you, y'all would have kept that property.
Hmm.
Brother, if we would have helped you, we got death threats from prison in letters, you know, from brothers that didn't want their wives to be a part of the organization, didn't want their daughters to be a part of the organization. And as if we were doing something like we were selling drugs or something. I mean, then they sent, they came out of prison and all of their little children or grandchildren was in our school
Hmm.
because they saw how successful it was, that math and science was so beautiful that the state of New Jersey came in and said that we were teaching higher than the core curriculum of the Department of Education.
Hmm.
And I said, you would never go into Westfield and Livingston and say that to schools that were teaching the same as we're teaching our 3 and 4 years old, because they sat with them without us. They had us out of the room, and they saw that they weren't just regurgitating. They knew 15 scientists, and I'm talking about 3 and 4 year olds. We had our Wisdom cable TV show. And so we have videotape of our children and the different math and science projects that they were doing all around. Incredible, because we loved our children. And that was the first criteria, not how many degrees you have, but do you love children? You have to love our Black children in order for us to hire you. And we will pay you top dollar to teach them, but you have to love them first.
Well,
So and we taught yoga and, you know, serenity, and they taught it to their parents, you know, how to de-escalate and how to love each other. It was just a beautiful experience, and we're looking forward to the second book. I want to send you our 10-year anniversary book.
we're
I want to send that to you.
well,
Yeah.
we are definitely going to have to have you back because
Okay.
there's just so much information that you gave, and as I said at the beginning, it reads like an Academy Award winning movie
Oh my God.
where you have people at the beginning, they start with nothing, they build, then
God.
there's this drama, they have to fight off the FBI,
Right.
but
Right.
they eventually survive because, you know, right now you are still an activist, you are still doing work with dealing with housing and eviction.
And foreclosures. And on that note, I just wrote the governor and the attorney general today. I'm the chair of the New Jersey Coalition for Due Process of Law, and we have been fighting for the attorney general's office. They are supposedly in an investigation of Wells Fargo for stealing our homes.
Hmm.
I thank God I had a mother and father who brought property and showed me. They were my first real estate teachers. Not only my father, of course, had the business, but, you know, they brought 2 pieces of property, one on Chadwick Avenue, then they had the highway come through, and on Hanford Street, that house is still a family home. This is Black wealth, the property. And I have 2 other properties, thank God. But my property in East Orange, I want restitution from Wells Fargo from it. I want it from all of the members of the New Jersey Coalition for Due Process of Law. And we're talking about 21 counties. We're talking about mostly Black folks, but there's white folks, Egyptian folks, Indian folks down in South Jersey and Monmouth County and stuff that come up to our meetings, and because they've been illegally foreclosed on too, and they all know it's fraud. So we just told the governor, you know, if he continues to ignore us, him and Attorney General Grewal, that there is an election coming up in 2020 November, but there's also a gubernatorial election in New Jersey coming up in 2021. And he will never get that 95% of the Black vote. He can forget that if he continues to ignore our constitutional rights.
I like how we're ending this because it's like you're still fighting and
Yes.
you're still fighting. You're still right in it, and you're still challenging the government, right? You're
Oh,
challenging
absolutely.
state government, and because you're like, look, you came for me, I'm coming for you. You need to give us what's ours. I'm still an
Come on.
organizer. Uh,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
tonight.
Jonathan. Thank you so much. This
We're,
was food for my soul.
well, hopefully everyone else who's hearing it will get a lot from it. And again, we're going to have you back, even on our main show, All Politics Are Local, because the stuff that you're still doing is still affecting people's lives. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anytime. Thank you. God bless.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.